Buy my short story collection. It's now also linked on the Amazon site with the Kindle and the paperback version because the system apparently needed a few days to make that happen. Remember that if you buy the paperback, you can get the Kindle version for free. Right now, only one person has redeemed that, so if you have already purchased the book, know that this is possible for you. I'll put links in the description. You should get redirected to your national sites. So I was gonna do an interesting lives video for today, but it turns out I fell into a deep rabbit hole, and it's gonna take me some time to figure that out. But one of the things that struck me the most about reading this new batch of research material was that a lot of it just didn't make any fucking sense. And then I realized that there's quite a bit of things in the world that just don't make sense, and we just go, yeah, that's just how it is. Like, for instance, the platypus. What the fuck is this? What was the world builder of the Earth universe thinking when he came up with this? It's like, yeah, I just put all of this together, and it doesn't make sense. Well, just put it somewhere in the evolutionary tree, the monkeys will figure it out. The whole shape of the Mediterranean Sea, it's like an early game Empire Simulator phase, where they have like an extra secret sea that's split off in the Black Sea, and then for like the later game, you've empires that can stretch all over the world. But while the tech tree is low, you have the empires that are in this inland sea. Finland, literally all of it. There's no reason for it to be there. The language sounds like it's made up to sound funny. Everyone is socially awkward. Even though alcohol is expensive as shit, everybody is fucking drunk all of the time, and yet they defeated one of the biggest fucking villains in the history of the Earth meta storyline in the middle of winter on skis, eternally putting them in the badass Hall of Fame. Meanwhile, Australia once declared war on emus, and they had helicopters and machine guns, and also they lost. That's fucking dumb. Thomas Edison, one of the most brilliant minds to ever exist, spent serious time and resources designing and manufacturing a piano that was made out of concrete. And it was shit. Because obviously it was a piano that was made out of concrete. Some years ago, they developed an inhaler for insulin as opposed to just, putting it in your veins. I don't know if this is how you put insulin in your veins. I assume it's not. But instead of doing this, you just do this like a fucking asthma inhaler. And even though it's the clearly superior product, just didn't catch on. It just disappeared. It was a market flop. In the 60s, Ford developed a new kind of steering wheel that wasn't actually a steering wheel, but it was like a wrist twist thing. And it didn't obstruct vision. It was much more comfortable to handle. You could have injured arms and drive without a problem. But it just never really happened beyond like the few models where it was in, because people were accustomed to steering wheels. How often have you seen objects and situations and especially organizational structures, and you looked at them and you went, this could be handled in a so much more logical way that makes so much more sense, that is so much superior to the current system. But it's not. And I'll tell you why, is that sometimes things just happen and they don't make sense, but they still are the way they are. And of course there's always like some reason for it, but it tends to be super complex and also monumentally stupid. Like, just nobody did that smarter thing at any point because everyone thought that someone else was going to do it. Like any complex system dominated by a certain complicated set of rules, humanity and its culture is subject to chaos. And as nice and cool it might be to have, like, on a meta level, understanding why certain cultural trends happen and why they don't, a lot of the time it is ultimately so complicated in the reasoning process that you must say that it's random because you cannot understand why it came to be the way that it is. And that works the other way around too, by the way. Sometimes things just don't happen that should happen, and the reason is that they just didn't happen. Now contrast this, generally speaking, with fictional worlds. In The Expanse, on a series station, this I think is only in the books, they have really good beer. They have a huge selection of different kinds and types of beer. They have invented new types of beer, and it's just really good. And you know what? It makes sense. These people have been working with fungi to create food for themselves since basically settling the asteroid belt. And one of the most useful food fungi is yeast. And you add this to the fact that there's a lot of people from beer-producing cultures that came to the belt, and you get good beers. I like this because it's just good world building. It's not really relevant to the plot that things are this way. It's not necessarily like an immediately obvious thing, but it is a thing that when you think about it for a moment, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. It gives the world more texture, it makes it feel alive, like it's a real place, and thereby it makes the story feel more real, and the characters that live in this world feel more like real people. But what I kind of miss in fictional world building is the stuff that doesn't make sense. The stuff that is just seemingly random in there and sometimes interferes with whatever the characters want to do for reasons that are not plot relevant, but just because that's the way it is. Because that is what happens in the real world all the time. Things just sort of occur and they come out of left field and it's like the truck passes by and we shrug and we go, well, that's odd, but I suppose this is just how the world works. There are a few cases of stuff like this in like world building, but the general response that I tend to see from audiences is, oh, this is stupid. This is bad world building because it doesn't make any sense and it shouldn't be this way. But no, that is maybe not what good world building looks like, but it is definitely what realistic world building looks like. Because as a lot of people find out as they get into like doing stories, is that realism and storytelling very often sort of collide. I'm sorry, why does this character that we have right here just get to be at all the historical times and places in his world and make all the important decisions, even though there's other people who are more qualified for it? Or maybe, you know, they should have actually been sent there, but no, instead they sent this sort of actually quite random person. It's because we can have a better emotional connection with this character that we know better, instead of just introducing random new people that we don't really know to the situation, even if it would make more sense that they are there. And it makes for a very problematic dichotomy. On one hand, you could have like stupid plot holes, but the story would be realistic, or you have a smoother story that feels like a better story, but it just doesn't feel as real. It breaks suspension of disbelief in people who look for this kind of shit. And there's always a discrepancy between what the audience sees and what goes on in the background. Much like in the real world, stupid, small things have weird and unpredictable, sometimes massive causes. It should be the same in fictional worlds. And there isn't always time to explain these things to your audience, because often the reasons are just stupid and mundane, like people were just incompetent. Everyone in this building was just incompetent. Even though they're just normal people, very often people are just incompetent. And sometimes there's not the space because there isn't the space. Because the reason for this very simple outcome is super complex, because it derives from chaos. And remember, chaos is just a chain of events that can neither be predicted nor necessarily be like constructed backwards in a way that makes sense. I mean, for instance, if you look at like historical adaptations of certain events, like films and books and stuff, very often they will be highly fictionalized in a manner where there's just entirely new characters and so like characters are mashed together, because it just makes for a better story. It makes people not go, hold on, why did this supposedly competent person on this day make this stupid decision that seems like contrived just for the make the plot happen? That's dumb. And maybe because that happened in real life, that person was just having a bad day, or they were just having a brain fart at that moment, or they didn't get enough sleep the night before because they were out drinking. Or that's a reason that's really too good. It makes too much sense. Throughout history, all the time things have happened where the reason that they have is just not good storytelling. And I don't have a solution for this problem, but also I don't think it's necessarily as much of a problem. As an author, personally, I like to go about it as, listen, reader, you don't need to understand this. This is just happening now. I promise I won't do the stupid shit to interfere with the main plot much. As a reader, unless it's like glaringly unrealistic, I'll just go, fuck yeah, that is realistic world building right there. That's something stupid going on. Or alternatively, I'll just assume that there is a reason for it. Maybe the author themselves doesn't even know the reason because it's too complicated. It is the product of chaos, but it is a realistic reason. And if there isn't any weird, eccentric, or stupid world building, I just sort of try to enjoy the parts of the world building that make sense. Thank you very much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, share this to your relevant communities, but do not spam them. Consider purchasing some of my merchandise. The book, get the book. If you're interested in like cool short stories, consider supporting me on Subscribestar or Patreon. And in that spirit, well, just maybe do some world building, unless you're not into that particular kind of thing. I really have to do a video because I'll be leaving later this week, and I have to do a video for Friday in the can, and I'm not sure what I'm gonna do yet. And the next like days are gonna be pretty busy. Yeah, but that should be my problem. And I appreciate you all, and see you around, cunts.